Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tom Harder. I'm coming back to you with another public service announcement. My cell phone just ran out of charge, and so I'm tethered by the cord to the power strip. But regardless, it was a beautiful Easter Sunday, and especially loved working in the garden today. Enjoyed all the flowering cherry, the tulips coming up, especially the purple ones, and then there was the helleborus, which is just a spectacular blooming plant this time of year. But being in that lush environment, I thought about the old tale of King Midas and how that might relate to the COVID virus. So King Midas of Phrygia was a kindly king, maybe a little short of intelligence, but he lived on a grand estate with lush gardens, kind of like mine. And one morning he awoke and found an old satyr sleeping in one of his gardens. Now these satyrs, these are fairies that you find everywhere. They love music, dancing, women, wine, and they're just all about pleasure. And Midas, finding this old satyr, could have punished him. Being kindly, he released him. Now that pleased Dionysus, the god of pleasure and wine, and he was so pleased with Midas that he granted him a wish. And Midas asked that everything he touched turn to gold. And within minutes, he was the most satisfied and richest person on the earth. And then within hours, it almost killed him. Everything he touched turned to gold. Food and drink turned to gold. His young daughter came to hug him. She turned to gold. His friends came by, shook their hands. They turned to gold. And suddenly, this richest man in the world was lonely and friendless. So how was the Midas touch like the COVID touch? Think of all those kids on the beach during spring break in Florida and in California, reaching out, touching their friends, being in close contact. It's the COVID touch. They're passing that virus back and forth. Yesterday in line at Whole Foods, I was pleased to see that people were 6 feet apart, and Whole Foods was being very careful to maintain that distance, but they weren't requiring masks. That's the COVID breath, the COVID touch. Another man I was at the meat counter with, who looked to be about 85, wearing his mask here. Now mine's covering my face. And I asked the old guy, I said, well, how you making out during all the social isolation? And he looked at me with a little grin. I said, it's just been a pain in the neck, and I can't wait to see it go through the South, and let's get done with this nonsense. And then he said something about it being like the common cold. And I told him I was a doctor, and then I said, I think you ought to stay home. You know, if you get sick, you might be one of the first people admitted to the hospital, regardless. I think he was listening to me, knowing that I was a doctor. But either way, why all this disrespect for the CDC guidelines to wear a mask in public? Is it vanity? Maybe. Is it sheer laziness? You just can't find a mask, and it's too much trouble to fold a napkin and put some rubber bands on it and flip it over your ears? Or do you believe it's a hoax? Or maybe it's just simply a selfish disregard. You know, the virus is for everyone else. No, it's not. It's for you. Viruses need us to transmit them. And this little virus that breaks apart in soap and water, it needs us more than ever. So let's do what we can to stop it. Remember, the Midas touch is like the COVID touch. If the president opens the economy up in a month or two, remember, the virus is still going to be in the community, and we're still going to have to practice good personal protective behaviors. 2020 might become the year of the mask. I'm Dr. Tom Harder. Thanks for listening, talking straight to the point.